Blood has a price, and those who live by darkness know this better than anyone. Between hunger and eternity, there is a secret that few dare to tell. Would you dare to listen? Then like it and subscribe. Or maybe, when you look in the mirror, you'll realize that you're no longer alone. Vampire Bride. The mist crept across the cemetery ground like spectral fingers, enveloping the ancient tombs. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant sound of church bells marking midnight. Miguel walked through the rusty iron gates, driven by an obsession that had consumed him for months. He had heard stories about the legend of the Vampire Bride, a woman condemned to wander among the living, waiting for a love that would never return. Many claimed it was just a tale to scare the naive, but Miguel knew it was real. He had seen her. The first time, it was a glimpse in the mirror of his house. A pale reflection, dark eyes, and a slender silhouette wrapped in a blood-stained white veil. The second time, he heard her voice whispering his name in the darkness of the room, and now he was there, ready to meet her. He walked to the central mausoleum, where legend said she rested. The stone door was ajar, creaking at the slightest touch. The air inside was cold, laden with the scent of burned candles and something sweet, ferrous. Miguel took a hesitant step inside, and his eyes adjusted to the dim light. She was there, a woman with skin as pale as marble, dressed in an antique wedding gown, lace torn and stained by time. Her eyes were two deep, hungry caverns, and her lips, tinged red, curved into a gentle smile. Her veil floated around her face as if it had a life of its own. "Have you come to find me?" Her voice was melancholic and sweet, like a forgotten melody. Miguel felt a chill run down his body. He wanted to run, but something inside him begged him to stay. She reached out to him, her icy fingers touching his warm skin. A whirlwind of images flooded his mind, centuries of waiting, a love story interrupted by betrayal and death, and the promise that one day she would find her true groom. I'm not him," Miguel whispered, trying to pull away, but his feet were stuck to the ground. Her eyes shone with infinite sadness. "But you could be." Before he could react, she pulled him close. Her breath was sweet and intoxicating, and her fangs gleamed in the candlelight. He tried to resist, but it was useless. As her teeth pierced his skin, a paradoxical sensation overcame him. Pain and ecstasy, death and rebirth. Miguel felt his own essence drain away, his heart beating slower and slower until it finally stopped. The next morning, the cemetery was empty. The mausoleum closed as always. But those who looked closely would see something different. Next to the Vampire Bride's tomb, a new gravestone had appeared, without a name, only with a phrase engraved, "Until eternity separates us." Blood ritual. The forest was dense and silent on that moonless night. Only the wind cut through the treetops, whispering ancient secrets among the twisted branches. Sophia, driven by an irresistible curiosity, followed the old trails that the villagers avoided at all costs. There were legends about the forbidden forest, whispered stories about disappearances, and profane rituals performed there centuries ago. But Sophia had never believed in horror stories. She walked with careful steps, guided by a strange, pulsating red light that seemed to emanate from the center of the forest. The air was heavy, laden with a sweet, ferrous smell. Then she saw the silhouettes. A group of hooded figures gathered around a stone altar covered in ancestral symbols. In the center, a pale body lay motionless, bathed in the red light of the torches. Blood trickled from deep cuts, being collected in ornate silver goblets. The scene was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Sophia felt panic rise in her chest, but before she could retreat, an icy hand grabbed her shoulder. Her body froze. Slowly, she turned to face black, hungry eyes. A man with pale skin and dark hair watched her with a twisted smile. "You're just in time for the sacrifice," he murmured. The circle of hooded figures opened, and Sophia was dragged into the center. Her body trembled, but her mind was numb, as if an invisible weight prevented her from reacting. The man held her face with cold hands and tilted his head, studying her. "She's perfect," he said, his voice echoing through the woods. "Her blood will strengthen us." The hooded figures began to murmur chants in a language Sophia did not know. The altar pulsed as if it were alive. She tried to scream, but her voice was muffled by an invisible force. The man pulled a black-bladed dagger and raised it in the red light. That's when something changed. A scream echoed through the forest. It was not human. Something emerged from the shadows, a colossal figure with glowing eyes and fangs as long as blades. The hooded figures scattered, seized with panic. The man holding the dagger turned to face the creature, but before he could react, it pounced on him, tearing his throat in a single movement. Blood gushed in dark spurts, covering the altar. Sophia felt the invisible force that held her captive dissolve. She fell to her knees, gasping, as the survivors fled into the darkness. The creature raised its head, staring at her with eyes as deep as abysses. "Go," whispered a voice inside Sophia's mind. "Before I change my mind." She didn't hesitate. She ran without looking back, stumbling between roots and stones until she found her way out of the forest. The sun began to stain the sky with orange tones when she reached her village. But something was different. Her body was warm, her heart pulsed strangely, and in her mouth a metallic taste remained. Sweet, ferrous. Sophia never returned to the forest, but on nights of the new moon, when the wind howled through the trees, she felt a calling, a deep and uncontrollable desire. She knew she would never be the same again. Night hunt. The city breathed danger after midnight. The dim lights of the lampposts flickered as if they hesitated to illuminate the dark alleys. Ricardo walked quickly, his footsteps echoing on the wet asphalt. He felt something was following him. It wasn't paranoia, it was real. It all started at the bar where he had been hours before. A woman of mesmerizing beauty watched him from across the counter. Skin as pale as porcelain, eyes so dark they seemed like bottomless wells, and a subtle smile that hid indecipherable promises. When she approached, time seemed to slow down. Her perfume was sweet, intoxicating. "Are you alone?" she asked, her voice soft as a whisper. He smiled, accepting the company, without imagining that night would mark his destiny. Now, Ricardo ran. The icy wind cut his face as he plunged into the narrow alleys. He knew he needed to hide. But how could he escape something that didn't seem to follow the natural rules? The woman, if he could call her that, didn't walk. She floated between the shadows. Sometimes he saw her at the end of the street. Other times he felt her presence right behind him, so close that he could hear her cold breath on his neck. But every time he looked back, she wasn't there. His lungs burned, and his heart felt like it was exploding in his chest. He entered an abandoned building, panting, and leaned against the damp wall. The silence was absolute. Maybe he had managed to shake her off. A soft laugh filled the air. Ricardo held his breath. The laughter came from all sides, as if the walls were whispering his name. "Why run, Ricardo?" Her voice echoed through the room. He tried to move, but something held him back. Icy hands emerged from the darkness, holding his arms and legs. Living shadows immobilized him, dragging him to the center of the room. And then she appeared. Her eyes gleamed in a crimson hue, and her sharp teeth sparkled in the dim moonlight that entered through the broken window. "You ran well, but the hunt always has an end." Before he could scream, her lips touched his neck, and a sharp pain ran through his body. The world darkened, and his last vision was her face, smiling, satisfied. That night, Ricardo stopped being the hunted and became the hunter. Days passed, and Ricardo woke up in an unfamiliar room. The smell of burned candles and wine hung in the air. He felt neither hunger nor pain, only an insatiable thirst. He got up and walked to a dusty mirror. The reflection was there, but different. His skin was paler, his eyes carried a crimson glow, and a new instinct burned within him. The door opened softly. She was there, the same woman, now without a veil, without mystery, just pure and terrifying beauty. "Now you understand, don't you?" she whispered. "The hunger, the thirst, the calling." Ricardo swallowed hard. His throat burned. She approached, touching her cold lips to his. "It's time for your first hunt." And so, Ricardo went out into the night, his footsteps echoing through the silent streets. Now, he was the predator, and someone, somewhere, felt they were being followed. Eternal thirst. Helena came to the small village of Vale do Luar, Moon Valley, in search of peace. The big city suffocated her, and the promise of a quiet life among mountains and forests was all she needed. The village was picturesque, with its stone houses and cobblestone streets, but what caught her attention from the first moment was the way the villagers looked at her, with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Soon, she noticed something strange. After dusk, the streets were completely empty. The doors of the houses were locked with heavy bolts, and no lamp illuminated the windows. Questioning the few friends she made, she received only vague answers. "Don't go out at night, Helena. It's dangerous," they said, avoiding looking her in the eyes. Helena tried to respect the unwritten rule, but her curiosity was stronger. On a silent night, she decided to go out and explore the village under the moonlight. The air was heavy, and an inexplicable chill ran down her spine. As she walked through the alleys, she noticed figures moving in the shadows. The sound of footsteps echoed, but when she turned around, there was nothing there. That's when she saw him. A tall, slender man, wearing a black coat, watched her from the end of the street. His eyes gleamed with a crimson hue, and his skin was pale as the moon. Helena's heart raced, and she felt an instinctive impulse to flee. But before she could move, he was already a few steps away from her, as if he had materialized from the air. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice deep and mesmerizing. Helena tried to answer, but her mouth was dry. Every fiber of her body screamed to run, but something in his presence kept her rooted to the ground. The man smiled slightly, revealing sharp fangs. Suddenly bells echoed through the village. A door opened violently, and a group of villagers emerged, holding torches and sharp stakes. "Run!" shouted a familiar voice. It was Emile, one of the few friends Helena had made. The vampire growled and, in a swift movement, disappeared into the darkness. Helena felt her body being pulled by Emile and other villagers, who rushed her inside a house and locked the door. "You almost died, Helena," exclaimed Emile, panting. "He chose you. Now he won't stop." It was there that the truth came to light. The village was ruled by an ancient vampire, and the villagers had lived under his rules for centuries. The ritual of hiding at night was the only way to avoid being hunted. But Helena had broken the cycle. Now the vampire wanted her. In the following days, Helena tried to run away, but she always felt his presence, in the mirrors, in the shadows, in the whispers that came with the wind. The entire village knew he would not give up. On the last night, the moon was full when Helena woke up with a strange sensation. Her body was paralyzed. In the corner of the room, the vampire watched her, his gaze burning with an implacable desire. "You belong to me now," he whispered. The next morning, Helena's bed was empty. No sign of struggle, no clue where she could have gone. The villagers knew the truth, but no one dared to talk about it. That night, a new rule spread among the villagers. If a new soul arrives in the village, she must leave before nightfall, or she will be one more among the disappeared. The bloodthirsty court. The city of Montrevel has always had a melancholic beauty. Its cobblestone streets and old mansions hid secrets that no one dared to mention. Among them, the Daumont Mansion, an 18th century palace that remained unchanged by time. Its windows were always closed, and its iron gates were never opened. They said its owners had disappeared centuries ago, but at night, flickering lights could be seen behind the dusty curtains. Hugo, a young historian, did not believe in superstitions. His job was to unravel the mysteries of the past, and the Daumont Mansion intrigued him. He decided to investigate its archives and discovered something curious. The Daumont family was known as a lineage of eccentric aristocrats whose influence went beyond what any official record could tell. They were patrons of great parties and luxurious dinners, and then, suddenly, they ceased to exist. No registered deaths, no heirs, just a void in history. Driven by curiosity, Hugo found a gap in the fence of the mansion and decided to enter. The air inside the property was dense and laden with the scent of burned candles and something slightly metallic. The main hall, despite being dusty, seemed intact. Crystal chandeliers, red tapestries, and a long dining table set for a party that had never ended. That's when he heard a sound, a soft rustle, as if someone were dragging a dress across the marble floor. His heart raced. He turned slowly and saw a woman standing at the entrance to the hall. She wore an aristocratic outfit from centuries past. Her skin was pale as the moon, and her eyes gleamed in a deep crimson hue. She smiled. "You're early for the banquet." Hugo swallowed hard. He tried to say something, but his throat locked up. Other figures began to emerge in the shadows. Men and women with the same ethereal appearance, all elegantly dressed, as if they had just left a long-forgotten ball. The woman approached, her steps light as if they barely touched the ground. It's been so long since we had a new guest. Hugo tried to run, but the doors behind him were already closed. The figures around him moved slowly, surrounding him. The hall was filled with a low murmur, almost like a song, while red eyes gleamed in the dim light. The woman, who seemed to lead the court, reached out and touched Hugo's face with an icy delicacy. "The Daumonts never disappeared, mon cher." Her smile widened, revealing sharp fangs. "We just wait for the right moment to choose who will join us." The vampires of the Daumont mansion were not mere predators. They were nobles of a forgotten era, condemned to immortality within the confines of their own opulence. They fed on reckless travelers, absorbing not only their blood, but their memories, their fears, their secrets. Each new member who entered the court brought with them a piece of the outside world, making them more powerful, wiser, and even hungrier. Hugo felt his mind darken as the woman whispered in his ear, "Eternity has a sweet taste, you'll see." Hugo's last thought before darkness was an unanswered question. After all, had he invaded the mansion, or had he been invited?